Good evening, class. This is a continuation of my lecture on Riders to the Sea. Today I propose to discuss the play in brief, maybe a little bit of the text and a discussion of a general discussion of the play. You know that it is a one-act play, so there are no further divisions. It's a short play, and it is set in Ireland, in an island, as the play says in the scene, an island off the west of Ireland. So Synge has depicted typical rural island life of the islanders, their day-to-day activities, and the life of simple, we can even say poor people, and the challenges that they meet, and the kind of acceptance they have of the elements of nature. Synge has shown very clearly the interaction between human beings and the forces of nature, and has proved how nature is too strong a force for humans to deal with, and they have to ultimately accept the strength of the forces of nature. So there is a kind of silent resilience yet acceptance of whatever the forces of nature will do to the human being, and that is why we see that it is a tragedy. The play is set in an island of Ireland. You may be familiar with the characters. The characters involve one family in which the matriarch is Moria, and she has had many sons and two daughters, as I mentioned in the characters, but one by one she has lost each of her sons to the sea. So it is rather pathetic that by the end of the play there is a sort of tragic acceptance of the reality of life, and a kind of defeatist acceptance, if we can say that Moria reflects in the end, when all her sons are gone, all are drowned in the sea. So there is Moria, an old woman who's the mother of the children, and there are two daughters that I mentioned. So there is Kathleen, her elder daughter, who's about 20 years old, and there is Nora, a younger daughter. And there is, when the play begins, there is one son who is alive, Bartley. And also at the beginning of the play, the situation is such that we are made aware that they have recently lost another member of the family, another young son, Michael, to the sea. So the two girls, Kathleen and Nora, seem to be shielding their mother, protecting their mother from the reality of the situation, the reality of having lost Michael. That is so because the suspense that still exists is that Michael's body has not been found. He has perished in the sea, and they have found a bit of clothing, out of which they found stockings and some more stuff, and that has been handed over to the family, not within the knowledge of Moria, but the girls have it, and they are trying to identify through the clothing whether it is the clothing of Michael, and therefore the dead man's clothes that have been found are Michael's, and therefore whether it is a reality that Michael is lost to the sea and is dead. But the daughters are trying to shield their mother from this grief, and therefore they are doing it surreptitiously. They are trying to make sure that Moria does not get to know. So they find out, they go through the stockings that have been knit by the girls only, and they are able to identify that these are the clothes of Michael, but they hide away the clothes in a loft where grass is stored, so that the mother is not aware of that. The other son who's alive, that is Bartley, is also going to go about his business on the sea, because their life is very, very closely connected to the sea. The life of all these islanders, they cannot avoid an interaction with the sea. So he is ready to depart, and he is going to a fair to sell the ponies that he has. And the mother is not agreeable to letting him go, because she has just lost another son and she's grieving, and she does not want her other son to go, but her feel that opinion is not heeded, and Bartley has got ready to go. And the girls have prepared a cake for her, and they send her, they reproach her, and they say that instead of stopping him from going, because that is a daily business that everybody has to carry on, instead of that she should go and give him her blessing. So he has left the house without her blessing, so she is coaxed by the daughters to go and meet him and as he passes, and give him her blessing. And she does that, and she carries the cake that the girls have made for him, because he will be needing food. And a strange thing happens is that when she goes and she sees Bartley passing, she has a vision, and it is a vision that horrifies her. And she comes back and relates that experience to her daughters. And she says that she has seen Bartley riding on one horse, and there is the grey pony behind, which is following his horse, which is tied to the horse and is following. And she has a vision of Michael, the other son who has gone, on that other horse, following Bartley. So it is a vision which scares her, which shakes her up, and it seems to be a vision of warning, of foreboding. And she's completely shaken up, she's devastated, and she can see the message behind that vision, and she shares it with her girls. And very soon after that, they get the news that the pony knocked Bartley off, and he also drowned in the waters, and his body is brought back. And that is where there is a sense, there is an acceptance and a kind of pathetic strength that Moria depicts when she says that now the sea cannot take anything away from her, because all her men folk are gone. There is mention in the play, I'm not going into that detail, of all her other sons, the names of all her other sons, and how they were all lost to the sea. So during the play also there is a mention of animals, livestock, etc., that will be that can be sold for earning money. So we say that there is a close connection between nature, animals, and human beings that is shown in the life of these simple people, in the lifestyle of these simple people. There is also something that Moria keeps repeating. She is hoping that the young priest, now the important thing is that he's shown to be a young priest, less experienced, that it is possible that that the young priest will be able to convince Bartley not to go on to sea, but he does not do that. So we see the suspicion towards religion or Christianity also, which is depicted through the symbol of the priest, and how he is not able to stop or save Bartley also from losing his life. So there are all his sons, all her sons, all her men that are mentioned. And when there is the scene where she has the vision of Michael following Bartley, and she had gone there to give her blessing to Bartley, and she is in fact so shaken up and so fearful and so awestruck that she is not able to utter a word. So she is not able to give her blessing to her son, and it is the son who blesses her as he is passing, as Bartley is passing. So it is actually a kind of final farewell and a final blessing that Bartley does, and eventually goes to sea and loses his life over there. So there is the speech by Moria in the play. I'd just like to mention a little bit of it, where she talks about all the men that she has lost to the sea, to the forces of nature. Bartley will be lost now, and let you call in Eamon and make me a good coffin out of the white boards. So there are boards that are kept in their houses, strangely without nails. That is what the coffin maker points out later, which are already there as a preparation, because there is the stoic acceptance of death. Not only stoic, but no struggle. There is no struggle against death. There is a kind. So it's a tragedy that lacks that kind of action, that kind of struggle or a fight against this tragedy. There is a very stoic acceptance. There is a very easy acceptance of the tragedy by the women of the family. So there's even preparation of a coffin that is ready, and which ultimately does come useful for Bartley. So she mentions, for I won't live after them. I've had a husband and a husband's father and 6 sons in this house, 6 fine men, though it was a hard birth I had with every one of them, and they coming to the world. And some of them were found, and some of them were not found. That is, the bodies were not found. But they are gone now, the lot of them. There was Stephen and Sean were lost in the great wind, and found after the bay of Gregory of the Golden Mouth, and carried up the 2 of them on one plank and in by that door. Then she later on continues with the speech, and she says, there was Shemus and his father and his own father again were lost in a dark night, and not a stick or sign was seen of them when the sun went up. There was Patch, after was drowned out of a curragh that turned over. So she's remembering all the different moments of tragedy in her life. And finally it ends with the body of Bartley that is brought in, and it completes her tragedy. And the women of the island, the neighbors, etc., come, and they end up all crying, all keening and repenting the loss of Moria and the family. And she sprays the holy water on the body, and has sort of accepted this loss. And by the end, it becomes very choric. It's like a chorus that is, and it's very musical, the way they are. If you imagine the staging, how there must have been a rhythmical moaning and crying and keening of the women, and how all the speeches also are tinged with a musical quality. So there is finally there is Moria's last speech, which ends the play, and I would like to read that too. Moria puts the empty cup mouth downwards on the table and lays her hands together on Bartley's feet. They're all together this time, and the end is come. May the Almighty God have mercy on Bartley's soul, and on Michael's soul, and on the souls of Shemus and Patch and Stephen and Sean. And may he have mercy on my soul, Nora, and on the soul of everyone is left living in the world. Michael has a clean burial in the far north. When they say clean burial, they mean that the sea has buried the body. By the grace of the Almighty God, Bartley will have a fine coffin out of the white boards, and a deep grave surely. What more can we want than that? No man at all can be living forever, and we must be satisfied. So there is an acceptance of the loss, one by one, repeated loss of men, till all the men of the family are gone. And there is a criticism of how there's a very easy acceptance of this tragedy. A few things that also I would like to bring to your notice. One thing is the language, and I had said earlier in the play that it is Anglo-Irish that is used. So it is not purely British English, the way the British people speak, but the way the rural people of Ireland speak English. So there is the formation of the sentences, the structure of the sentences is different. As I've read in these speeches, and I can read in some other speeches by Nora and Kathleen also, how they refer to their mother as herself. She says, Nora is reiterating a speech by the young priest, and she says, "I won't stop him," says he, "but let you not be afraid. Herself does be saying prayers half through the night." So herself is a reference to Moria. Okay, so this is how they speak. Herself does be saying prayers half through the night. That is, she will be praying, the mother will be praying for the for the safety of her sons. "And the Almighty God won't leave her destitute," says he, "with no son living." So the rhythmic quality, the musical quality of the language has to be remembered, which in which Synge's own musical background plays an important part. The language having a characteristic rural Irish flavor, that has to be remembered. And then a couple of things about the play as a tragedy. It has often been referred to as a classical tragedy. So when you talk about a classical tragedy, you know that there are the elements of tragedy, like I discussed a plot, and I said that this is a rather short play, so probably a beginning and an end, not a conventional plot. But other than that, when we talk of tragic characters, there is the character of Moria, and of all those boys who go to the sea and take the risk of losing their lives. So the characterization and the traditional elements of Greek tragedy involve two important things. There is reversal or peripety, and there is anagnorisis or recognition. That is, reversal is that point from which it is understood that now things have are moving beyond the control of the tragic characters, that fate has gone through a change, has reversed for them, and now they will inevitably be led to their tragedy. So reversal is that point. In this play, we can say that the scene where Moria sees the vision of her dead son, Michael, is the time when she is able to realize that now, since Michael is following the son who is alive, that is Bartley, so she knows that now her last living son is also gone. So that is the point of reversal or peripety in the play, and the point where the girls are able to identify through the socks that they have got, and there is a jacket, the socks that they have got, the girls are able to identify that the way they had woven the socks, leaving a stitch here and counting the stitches, they are able to completely know with no doubt that the socks do belong to Michael. So that is the point of realization or anagnorisis, when they know that the earlier son has also gone and has died to the sea. Then just as tragedy is a human being pitted against fate, here it is the human beings pitted against the forces of nature, and the sea as a major force of nature, and how the human being is utterly powerless in front of the forces, faced with the forces of nature, and how those forces are so mammoth in contrast to the to the weakness of the human being, that ultimately the human being will suffer and will lose, will have to accept defeat. So it is so these are the forces of nature, and the constant interaction between the forces of nature and human beings is what we see. This is the tragic interplay that we see. Though we will not say that it is only the devastating side of nature or the demonic side of nature, there is a balance. So nature is both a giver and a taker. It is a sustainer also, because their lives, their daily lives depend on nature. So whether it is the rearing of animals, selling animals at the fair, or fishing, the lives or the sustenance that they draw from the sea, all those are the beneficial aspects of nature. So on the one hand, there is a positive dependence on nature, on the sea, but on the other hand there is the wrath of the sea, or how the sea demands those sacrifices and takes away what it wants to take away. So there is the human being pitted against these forces, these strong forces of nature that will ultimately cause the human to suffer and meet his tragic end. So this is what there is in the Riders to the Sea as a tragedy, and I hope I have discussed it to some extent, because I've already given you all the study material. There is material on characterization, and there is material on language, on the play as a tragedy. So all those aspects have been covered, are there in your study material. Please go through that, and still if there are questions, you are most welcome after this discussion. But as of now, I hope I have completed a brief discussion of the play. So you have to remember that you have to study it on the as an objective, in an objective sense, no long answers, but hope your multiple choice questions you